Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're going to tackle a really weird and honestly kind of scary medical mystery. It's something that can just pop up out of nowhere and mess with the one thing we all take for granted, just walking. So, how does this whole thing start? Well, it's usually with this super confusing, really frustrating moment. You go to take a step, just a normal step, and you can't lift the front of your foot. It just won't come up. So you end up dragging it, or it kind of slaps the ground with every step. All of a sudden, a simple walk becomes this massive effort. Right, so this thing has a name. It's called foot drop, but here's the absolute key thing to get. It's not a disease in itself. A better way to think about it is like it's the check engine light on your car's dashboard. It's a big flashing sign telling you, hey, there's an underlying problem here, and it's almost always pointing to one specific nerve. Okay, so what is the culprit? What's going on? Well, believe it or not, in most cases, this whole big problem comes down to one single solitary nerve. And you're about to see why its location, which is frankly just a terrible design choice, makes it so easy to injure. All right, let's meet our main character, the common peroneal nerve. It's a pretty important nerve that branches off from the big one you've probably heard of, the sciatic nerve. And it's got two main jobs. First, it's the boss that tells the muscles to lift your foot up and turn it out. Second, it's in charge of sensation. You know, the feeling on the top of your foot and the outer part of your shin. So here's the crazy part. The reason this nerve is so prone to problems isn't because it's weak or anything. It's purely because of where it lives. You know that saying in real estate, it's all about location, location, location? Well, for this nerve, that's its biggest problem. And here's the issue. This nerve takes this really exposed path. I mean, it literally wraps right around the head of your fibula. That's the bone you can feel on the outside of your knee. And here's the kicker. There's almost no padding. No muscle, no fat, nothing to protect it. It's like having a live electrical wire running just under the surface of your skin. It's just begging to get squished or damaged. And that is why so many things you wouldn't even think twice about, can cause this problem. I'm talking about stuff like just crossing your legs for too long. That can do it. Or a nasty ankle sprain, a bone fracture. Heck, even losing a lot of weight really fast can be a trigger because you lose that little bit of fatty padding that was protecting the nerve. Any of these things can set it off. Okay, so let's say this happens to you. You go to the doctor and say, I can't lift my foot. How do they figure it out? Well, it's not a guessing game. It's actually some pretty cool detective work, step by step, to find the real source of the problem. The whole investigation kicks off with a physical exam. First thing, the doctor's just going to watch you walk. They're looking for that classic high-stepping walk called a steppage gait. Then they'll check for any numbness, usually on the top of your foot. After that, it's muscle testing time. Can you lift your foot up? Can you turn it outwards? And finally, they'll probably gently push on that spot right by your knee to see if the nerve itself is tender or irritated. Now, if all signs from the physical exam are pointing to that nerve, they'll bring in some high-tech tools to be sure. Think of things like an EMG and an NCV test. These are basically like an electrician's toolkit for your nervous system. They measure how fast and how strong the electrical signals are moving down that nerve wire. And if they need an even closer look, an MRI or an ultrasound can give them a literal picture of the nerve to see if, say, a cyst or something is physically pressing on it. So, once they've nailed down the diagnosis, you're looking at two main paths for treatments. And let me be clear, the vast majority of people go down the first path, which is called conservative management. We're talking mainly about physiotherapy. Surgery is really a last resort. It's for very specific cases, like if the nerve is actually cut or if absolutely nothing else has worked. All right, let's talk about the best part, getting back on your feet. Because recovery is absolutely possible. But it's not a passive wait-and-see kind of thing. It's an active process, and it's all about smart, focused rehab. So phase 1 of recovery is all about protection and support. It starts with just learning, figuring out what to avoid doing, like maybe stop crossing your legs that one way. Then you'll do some gentle exercises just to keep your ankle from getting stiff. And a lot of times you'll use a special brace. It's called an AFO that physically holds your foot up. This is a game changer because it helps you walk safely and normally while giving that nerve the time it needs to heal. Okay, so once the nerve starts to wake up and show signs of healing, the whole game plan shifts. Now we're in rebuilding mode. This is where you'll start doing targeted exercises to get those muscles strong again. You're also re-educating your brain on how to walk properly and working on your balance and what's called proprioception. That's your body's sense of where it is in space. The whole goal is to get you back to doing real-world stuff like climbing stairs without a second thought. And honestly, this is the most important takeaway, the really hopeful message here. For most people, the outlook is really, really good. As long as you can figure out what was causing the pressure and get rid of it, whether that's as simple as not crossing your legs or maybe a small procedure, the nerve can bounce back. The big takeaway here is that nerves are resilient. They can heal. Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are the big things you absolutely need to remember from all this? First, foot drop isn't the disease, it's the symptom. And it's almost always pointing to that one super vulnerable nerve by your knee. Second, figuring it out is a clear, step-by-step process. Third, physio is your best friend here. It's the cornerstone of treatment and recovery. And fourth, the outlook is almost always positive. And maybe the biggest thing of all, just knowing what causes it, like how you sit, can help you make sure this never happens to you in the first place. You know, when you think about it, something like foot drop is a pretty powerful reminder. Our bodies are sending us signals all the time, right? Little things, a bit of tingling here, some weakness there. So the real question to leave you with is, are you listening to them? Because sometimes paying attention to those little whispers can save you from a whole lot of shouting later on.